As an organization that is dedicated to advocacy on behalf of employers, we're constantly plugged in to plan-sponsor challenges, concerns, and innovations. But there's a reason that they're called employee benefits and not employer benefits. And as we look to the future, it's important for us as an organization and an employer community to listen to the voices across the table and build relationships with those people. So next, we're going to hear a series of short talks from representatives of various constituent groups representing emerging demographics that will help dictate the future of employee benefits. We've asked them to talk about what their populations will want and need from the workplace and from workplace benefits. For example, our first speaker. Benjamin Brown started the Association of Young Americans, AYA, in his apartment in 2016 as an aspiring AARP for millennials. His nonpartisan organization focuses on issues that affect the younger generation, including climate change, criminal justice, and student debt. He's going to tell us what all HR professionals and parents are wondering. What are young people thinking? Please welcome Ben Brown.
Thanks, Jason. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. All right. Thank you for the introduction, Jason. I want to take just a couple minutes to tell you a little bit more about the Association of Young Americans for those of you who aren't familiar with us. And then what I really want to do is take some time and try and reframe this broader conversation about millennials and employer benefits. The Association of Young Americans is the first and only organization working to give young people a seat at the table, while also working for them consistently and delivering them value every single day. As Jason mentioned, you can think of us as the startup AARP for millennials, and the irony is not lost on me. What we really do is we try to provide young Americans with the tools to engage on the issues that they care about, while also delivering them consistent benefits, such as exclusive deals with benefit partners. In return, like all associations, we work for our members. We work for these young people by amplifying their voices and fighting for a better future for them every single day. So now that you know what we're about, let's talk about what we believe in, especially when it comes to employee benefits. And let's make sure we're on the same page with some numbers. A lot of you probably know these numbers, but I'm just going to say them anyway because I have 10 minutes. Millennials are the most diverse, most educated, and the largest generation in American history, 80 million strong. But we also face some unique challenges. Some extend beyond just the millennials. One is student debt. I really like to talk about student debt because it's easy to understand, it's a big problem, and I think we can all agree that higher education is vital for our companies and for society at large. 40 million Americans hold $1.3 trillion in student debt, and the average graduate left college last year $36,000 in debt. I'll also add that for the older generation, student debt is the fastest growing type of debt as older people try and stay more competitive, go back to school, and also sign on to their kids' and their grandkids' loans. So to stand out to employees, it's no wonder that some early adopters are starting to offer student debt payment assistance. Association of Young Americans, we supported HR 795, which for those of you who aren't familiar, would have made tax assistance from employers non-taxable income. It's reasonable to see that a benefit like this will become commonplace. And it's also reasonable to see that control of the broader benefits world will move towards the employee. For example, instead of just getting a 401k match, you might just get a deposit into your benefits portal, and then you can choose where to allocate that money. Student debt repayment, 401k match, healthcare, or just pocket the money and pay the taxes and run. And as I'm sure all of you know, especially those in HR or with children, millennials are changing things, and we're not sorry about it. And I would argue that we're changing things for the better. Some say it's because we're needy and we got too many trophies. Others say it's because we don't quite truly understand the pain of the sound of a dial-up internet connection. But the simple truth is that we just expect more from corporate America. We expect more from people who are leading corporate America. As all of your marketing and product teams know, millennials are more likely to purchase from companies that share their values. It's why Association of Young Americans vets partners and only works with benefit partners that share our vision for the future and our values. And it's no surprise that just like we are more likely to purchase from companies that share our values, we are more likely to work with companies that share our values. 93% of millennials say that companies' impact on society affects their decision to work there. 93%. Even more, 30% of millennials say they are willing to take a 10 to 20% pay cut to work for a company that shares their values and with a mission that they deeply agree with. So let's take a step back. Why do we even offer benefits? What is an employee benefit, and what is just being a part of a kick-ass company that you love to work with? We provide benefits because we want to be competitive and because we want to attract the best. That's where 401ks, healthcare, paternity leave, Bring Your Puppy Tuesdays come in. It's also where something like student loan assistance would come in. But I've never heard of a job that says benefits include 401k match, dental, and coworkers who respect you, care about you, and value your opinion and your ideas. I've also never heard of a high-paying job offer described as minimum wage plus 2 weeks off and $30 an hour more. We want those we attract and train to stay with us, but it's really more than that. It has to be more than that. We offer benefits because we know that financially, physically, and mentally healthy and happy employees means a happy and healthy business. Companies offer employees benefits to build a culture that takes care of employees and their world. You offer benefits because you want your employees to know that your lives and your future are connected. You fail together or you succeed together. We are willing to take a pay cut to work for a company that shares our vision for the future because that is the benefit. That is the greatest benefit of them all. And I took that benefit when I started the Association of Young Americans. This room is full of people who represent some of the most iconic brands, companies in the country and even in the world. And I know many are eagerly checking their phones and looking forward to the implications of the tax plan that's being debated just a few blocks away. But I want to challenge you when you think about innovative benefits that truly improve the quality of life of your employees. Think about your role in this new corporate world. Think beyond Puppy Tuesdays or student debt assistance, although those are great and I do love puppies on Tuesdays. For example, we all depend on grad students. And it is possible that within the next week, graduate school will become completely unaffordable if the grad school tuition waiver becomes taxable income. It is possible that graduates who graduate with $36,000 in student loans, which is the average, are unable to pay their student debt if the student debt interest deduction is eliminated. And these are just a few examples. The list goes on. Imagine the terms of the next job offer your HR puts together. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine the terms of the next job offer your HR department puts together. A quality job that pays a good wage that doesn't just include a 401k benefit, but also includes joining a company that fights for its employees, their families, and their communities. You can open your eyes. A little fight goes a long way, especially when you're a big guy. This is the benefit of the future, and millennials are going to make sure it happens whether you like it or not. Thank you. I've got a few minutes for questions. Any questions on the prompter or in general? I'm a millennial. Ask me a question. Yes?
This is just minor. How is your organization funded?
Yeah. So we've received some grant support and also through membership dues.
So your members are millennials
They are.
in the workforce,
Yes,
and they pay dues to you.
they do.
That's wonderful.
Not many of them, but yes. Hopefully more as time goes on. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Let's see. What is a big factor, one thing that people would not think millennials want from their job? One thing that people would, I went away, would not want. I don't understand that question, I'm sorry. Can bring the questions back up here? One thing that people would not think millennials, something people would not think millennials want from their job. Ooh. What is the biggest misconception about millennials? Mr. Brown, wow, thank you. What tactics would you suggest for getting young people to think about retirement? Okay, so first two questions, I think people seem to be very confused about young people, and I get that question a lot. I got that question at Eric. Young people are normal people. We're normal people, right? We're a little bit different, right? We don't know what dial-up connection sounds like, but we want the exact same things you all wanted when you were 25, right? We want opportunity, we want equality, we want the same footing and the same voice and access to levers of power that everyone else has. In terms of what people want from the workforce and from their employers, that certainly is changing. Young people expect different things from their employers. I don't have a good answer for that. It's a very broad question. Whoever asked that, you can come to me later and I'll think about it and I'll tweet it. You guys can all look at the answer later. What tactics would you suggest for getting young people to think about retirement savings? That's a great question. It is very hard to convince someone who doesn't have a choice but to pay off their student loans every month to start saving. And of course, saving a couple $100s a month when you're 25 is the same as saving a couple $1,000s when you're 35. So it's extremely important and valuable in the long run. I think that there are opportunities to give, this doesn't actually answer your question. I'm basically going to say, don't make them. If someone needs to pay off their student loans, give them that opportunity. And it's all about education. It's really, really hard to think about what's going to happen in 60 years when you retire when the Department of Education will garner your wages at the end of the month if you don't pay your student loans. Tactics. What is your organization's position on the ACA's individual mandate? Young adults are the least likely to need health coverage. Do you think they should still be obliged to purchase it? It's a great question. I believe that no matter, I'll get you in a second. I believe that no matter what you call the healthcare policy, whether it's Obamacare, the ACA, Trump care, it doesn't matter. If young people can get access to affordable, quality healthcare, they will get it. In terms of the mandate, it's true that it shafts young people. It limits how much you can charge older people compared to young, healthy people. There's obviously a lot of money and time being spent trying to convince young people that they need healthcare. There's an entire organization called Young Invincibles that focuses on it. But I don't think the mandate itself is the problem. I think it is just an understanding and access to quality and affordable healthcare. How would you define work-life balance? I am actually going to steal an answer I heard last night at dinner. someone told me that if you're talking about work-life balance, there is an undertone message that you want to get out of work, and that work is a bad place to be, and that you want to be at home. And home is great, but work-life balance means that you need to balance them and that you don't actually want to be at work. Young people want to be at work. We want to be at a place that we love, and we're willing to take a pay cut to do that. And I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Next, we are going to welcome Ann Hedgepeth, Interim Vice President of Public Policy and Government Relations at the American Association of University Women, one of the nation's leading voices promoting equity and education for women and girls, focusing on educational, social, economic, and political issues. She's been busy. Ann drives the organization's advocacy work and has supported AAUW's efforts to pass the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, among other measures. Please give a warm hand to Ann Hedgepeth.
Good morning. I'm Ann Hedgepeth. I'm the Interim Vice President of Public Policy and Government Relations at the American Association of University Women. I want to start by saying happy 50th anniversary to the American Benefits Council, and thank you for inviting me to be here and join the conversation today. AAUW actually also just celebrated a milestone. On Tuesday, we marked our 136th birthday. For those of you who don't know about AAUW, we were founded by a group of women who went to college when women didn't go to college. AAUW has been empowering women as individuals and as a community since 1881. We work as a national grassroots organization to improve the lives of millions of women and families. With our 170,000 members and supporters across the country, we advocate for policy changes, we conduct research on pressing issues, we coordinate programs such as salary negotiation trainings, and we award nearly $4 million in fellowships to women scholars every year. We started this work early in our history. Our first research challenged the notion that education limited women's fertility. It was a hot topic of the day in the 1880s, if you can believe it. And in 1907, we began our work on pay equity. One of our first advocacy projects was to fight the pay gap in civil service jobs here in DC. So I wanted to start today by talking about some of the things women entering and participating in the workforce are facing. And I'm actually going to start with something we heard from our prior speaker, student debt. From the start of women's careers, they experience a gender pay gap. In our research on recent graduates, we controlled for factors known to affect earnings, such as major, occupation, and hours worked. And guess what? The gender pay gap exists from day one in the workplace. And many of you are likely familiar with the fact that in 2016, women working full-time in the United States typically were paid just 80% of what men were paid, a gap of 20%. The gap gets even larger for Black women, Latinas, Native American women, and as well for mothers and older women. And it really compounds factors for our younger workers. As women enter the workforce, one of the things they bring with them is student debt. AAUW's research report released this year called Deeper in Debt found that women are more likely to take on student debt. They take on more student debt than men at almost every degree level and type, and they repay their loans more slowly than do men, in part because of the gender pay gap. And so we see that some of our youngest employees are in a tenuous financial position from the start of their careers. We found that many women recent graduates who were working and repaying their student debt are experiencing financial difficulty. They are unable to meet all essential expenses on a monthly basis. And this was particularly true for women of color, with over half of Black women recent graduates working and repaying student debt experiencing this financial difficulty. When women show up at workplaces across the country every day, they are also often confronted by hostile work environments. Recent news has certainly highlighted this reality, and the fact is that it spans sector and ideology. While 25% of working women say that they have been sexually harassed at work, at least 85% of harassment claims don't result in a claim being filed, and 70% don't even result in internal action. Our women workers are often responsible for their family's economic security in addition to their own. More women than ever before are breadwinners or co-breadwinners in their households, and women are overwhelmingly making their family's healthcare decisions. When it comes to their own healthcare, women face unique challenges given that they utilize more healthcare services than men. And as I'm sure you all are well aware, because women are more likely than men to be covered as dependents, they are at greater risk of losing insurance if they become widowed or divorced, if their spouse loses a job, or if that employer drops family coverage or increases premium or out-of-pocket costs to unaffordable levels. And let's be real. Even when women have great healthcare coverage, many lack paid sick days so that they can recover from an illness, seek care, or provide care to a loved one. More specifically, nearly 1 in 3 private sector workers and 7 out of 10 low-wage workers do not have paid sick days to care for their own health. Finally, as women look to the future and their economic security throughout their lives, continuing pay inequity results in women having fewer savings, lower Social Security benefits, and lower, if any, pension benefits, leaving them on an unequal retirement footing. Those lost wages really compound over time and can not only have a direct impact on women's current economic standing, but her retirement security as well. After all, you can't save money that you don't have. There's a thread here that I want to lift up. Economic insecurity as a result of the gender pay gap is a stark reality for many women workers. It starts from day one in their careers, and it is impacted by a number of factors. How can we expect women workers to do things like save for retirement or afford health care, even with good insurance coverage, if we are not addressing what they bring to the job and in a disparate amount of student debt, and the challenges that they face in the workplace, like the gender pay gap? Some of those factors are a part, for many of you, of your charge in your workplaces, and I know that you are on the front lines of supporting the health, retirement, and economic well-being of your employees. AAUW takes the need to combat the gender wage gap seriously, and we're working at all levels to change that dynamic. For example, we're advocating for policy changes across the country because some of the challenges I mentioned that women workers face can be fixed by strengthening our equal pay laws so that you don't have to win the boss or the employer lottery to be able to take care of yourself. But given the way that the gender wage gap interplays with healthcare insecurity, retirement insecurity, and the overall financial well-being of women workers and their families, I wanted to lift up a few workplace-level actions that some of you may be able to help take or help facilitate in your workplaces. While we know that you can't negotiate your way around discrimination, learning how to effectively negotiate for higher salary and benefits is a great tool in a woman's arsenal when navigating her own career. AAUW Work Smart salary negotiation workshops are empowering thousands of women across the country with the skills and tools needed to chip away at their own personal pay gap. Currently, AAUW Work Smart has partnered with Boston and Long Beach, Tempe, and Washington, D.C. city governments to offer free workshops to women in their communities so that they can have the tools to properly negotiate their salaries and benefits. Workplaces can also partner with us and make an investment in their employees and help foster these skills. I often ask workers and employers, do you conduct a gender pay audit? Employers across the country are taking this step voluntarily. You all may know that in 2015, Salesforce performed a comprehensive analysis of 17,000 employees that led to salary adjustments for 6% of their employees. The result? A 33% increase in the number of women who were promoted that year. There were clear disparities in their workforce. This practice is becoming more common, and currently the Employers for Pay Equity Consortium, hosted by Simmons College, has more than 50 companies committed. Your workplaces can and should take this step as well. Finally, there are important policies that can be put in place in workplaces to make pay inequity less common. Recently, cities, companies, and states have been moving towards discouraging or even banning the use of salary history in compensation decisions. When women experience pay discrimination, they carry it throughout their careers if employers base current salaries on past pay. This means you can perpetuate the pay gap without even realizing it. The reality is the gender wage gap impacts all aspects of women's workplace experiences, including how and if they can avail themselves of the benefits that come with their jobs. I hope we will all commit to being advocates for our workplaces to be more equitable and think about how some of the solutions I've mentioned can be woven into conversations about employee benefits and initiatives. Thanks, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Oh, okay. Can you leave them up? I'm so sorry, but it's hard when they go away like that. Great. So the first question is about on-site daycare as a potential employee benefit. Is it an effective HR recruitment tool, and is it something that families should push harder for? I actually want to take a step back and speak to the conversation about work-life benefits that came up earlier, because I think sometimes we think about those things in the context of benefits, and we miss the point that this is about the things we all experience every day. You don't get workers in a vacuum, right? They have kids. They have sick kids. They get sick themselves. They have parents they're caregiving for. We all know this, but the reality is you can't make those things go away by not providing flexibility and opportunity for people to take care of the needs that they have. And given that women remain primary caregivers for children in their households overwhelmingly, and that the time is split up still very differently based on gender, I think we all should be thinking about how do we make it possible for women workers to do their jobs well, and do their jobs with an infrastructure that our workplaces provide. Because workplaces shouldn't be viewed as separate or absent of the lives that people have to live every day. So where providing childcare, high-quality childcare, as an aspect of coming to work every day, there's a lot of evidence that that helps childhood development, it helps people stay in the workforce, and I absolutely think it's something that workplaces should be thinking about. Even if it's in the form of partnerships, there are certainly great things about dependent care savings accounts and the spending that you can put towards it, but it's even better when you know that your kid's being taken care of nearby or on-site with the flexibility in a job that allows you to balance those things, not as a benefit, but as an acknowledgement of the reality of all of our lives. I think that's really true for women workers, but I think also we all have an obligation to think about that as being true for all of our workers, as caregiving responsibilities are shared more equitably, I think, moving forward. Let's see. The next question is, what is AUW's biggest economic priority issue? You heard me talk a lot about the pay gap today, because at the end of the day, the way that it impacts every aspect of the economic security of women and their families, I think elevates it for us to a level of being our number one priority. We know there are a lot of ways to tackle it, and we have to think about all of the ways in which policies are advancing at the local, state, and federal level, and ways in which we can be tackling inequities through those policies. So it might be in a tax bill, but at the end of the day, we're thinking about what does it look like to make sure we're dealing with the inequities women are facing in the workforce through things like the gender pay gap. Please share your thoughts on the impact of formal, informal networks and its impact on executive sponsorship and advocacy. I think that we know that there are still major leadership gaps by gender in workplaces across the country. And it's on all sectors, right? It's who's in Congress, it's who are our governors, it's who's leading our institutions of higher education, and it's who are CEOs and leadership in workplaces. Informal networks that help women advance, I think, are really critical to workplaces taking on the issue of making sure they have a more diverse and representative workforce. But at the end of the day, informal networks are only as good as the people who engage in them and the commitment from a company to see the people advance, to pay them equitably, to provide them paid sick days, to have access to quality daycare, to have good health care, All of those factors are what keep women in the workforce and help them advance. And where informal networks support that and where people advocate for all of their workers and women workers, that makes a real difference. But it cannot be a replacement for a commitment from a workplace to take on advancing all of their employees, including women workers. In what industries are women making the largest employment gains, and what does that suggest to you? I don't know that I know off the top of my head exactly which industries, but I will lift up, I think, current momentum in some of our STEM fields where we are seeing a growing number of women workers. I think it's a reminder about how a real commitment from some top employers in some spaces can make a big difference for opening doors for women in specific fields. And I will leave it at that. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Anne. Our last speaker for this session is Abigail Zapote, Executive Director of Latinos for a Secure Retirement, an organization whose mission includes strengthening Medicare, increasing pension access, and improving financial literacy for Latinos. She is also the National Vice President for Young Adults for the League of United Latin American Citizens, and as such, she represents the collegiate and young adult councils across the country on the LULAC National Board. She herself is a dreamer who is now well on her way to citizenship and can speak with authority on the young Latin American experience. Please join me in welcoming Abigail Zapote.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here and for the American Benefits Council for inviting me today. Today I will give you guys a little bit of background on myself, the Latino experience, and as well as what we could be doing as employers to benefit more from Latinos in the workplace. Today, the Latinos in the United States are a growing portion of the US population. Over the next 40 years, Latinos will continue to grow and will account for nearly 30% of the US workforce. Today, we are about 15% of the workforce, so we will be doubling up, and that's going to be especially critical when we look at leadership roles, when we look at what is the best way to give benefits to this growing demographic. So first, I would like to give you guys a little bit of my backstory and how I came to work in DC, but also my experience as an undocumented person for 15 years in the United States. My first job was at 14 years old. I was hired at the same place as my mom, where I wore black slacks, a wildly colored shirt, a name tag that was shaped like a chili, and a hat. And for the most part, I was probably taking your orders at Taco Bell. A lot of my experience there was an experience of family. Everybody that worked there was not the typical teenager that you would think that would work at a fast food place. It was actually an older woman, about 45 years old. Everybody treated everybody equally with respect and as a family member. Because when we go to work, we think of everybody as our second family, as people that we get to experience and grow within the organization or within the company. And much more to say to that is that for a lot of these women that were working at Taco Bell alongside me, they used me as a catalyst of what I should be doing with my life to not end up in the places that they were in. Thankfully, after 15 years of being an undocumented person, I was able to get my residency in the United States. But that's not to say that it didn't come at a cost to my family. My brother was almost deported, and thankfully, because of what almost happened, we were able to get a lawyer to take our case and to finally get me and my mom proper documents in the United States. But unfortunately, my brother is still in removal proceedings. This happened at his university, where we actually both graduated from college. We don't hold any resentments to the university because it did give us a lot of different opportunities that we could have never had before. But it is to show you guys as well that I wear my immigration status on my sleeve as much as a lot of different Latinos do the same thing. Today, we are fighting for a Clean Dream Act to save TPS, and I hope that that is in your minds as well, because a lot of Latino families still are living in mixed status families. My stepdad is still undocumented, and so while I'm in DC trying to fight for benefits for older Latinos and for college-age students, I still worry every single day that I might not be able to come home to Dallas and find my stepfather there. And so to continue, even though all of that stuff is in the back of my head every single day, we still need to think about how we can progress and help Latinos in any industry that they come in. Today, millennial Latinos are graduating from college in very, very high rates, which is very exciting. But we still have a lot of steep hurdles to employment and financial security. One of the ways that you as employers can help this population would be to help young Latinos, high school students, and college students navigate the employment pipeline through paid work experiences. And I have to highlight that it should be paid work experiences. Even if they're internships, a lot of Latinos don't have the opportunity to take an unpaid internship because they still have to help pay for their student loans, pay for things at home, and essentially be a breadwinner for those people that are in their families. Today, 800,000 Latinos turn 18 every year. So there is a huge, huge population of folks that you guys could already be tapping into to grow within your companies. Young Latinos today have high career ambitions and value professional growth. Creating opportunities for growth and advancement within companies and organizations would be essential to retaining young Latino talent. For a lot of these young Latino millennials, they're looking to you as somebody to be a role model. Since for a lot of us, our parents held jobs as farm workers, work in the, work in the restaurant sector, and a lot of low minimum wage jobs. And so they're looking for folks to mentor them, looking for folks to help them achieve that gap that they weren't able to see in their home lives. Also, recognizing the value of Latinos' unique perspective. The sacrifices of our previous generations really shape the way our outlook on work. And really, our high work ethic really comes from looking at how much our parents have worked to get us to the positions that we're in today, and then also making sure that having that diverse perspective, whether that's in board meetings, whether that's in different places where we need more ideas and more ways to interact with a diverse population in the United States as a whole. Bringing in Latino will really be able to get your company to the next level, because they will be throwing out ideas that someone that is white would not necessarily have in mind. And that's why I think it's really, really essential to be in the positions that, in leadership positions. Another thing to think about is that family and career fulfillment outranks higher salaries for many Latino millennials. For a lot of us, flexible work policies, as far as giving time off, is really essential. Family is what drives us, and being there for the quinceañeras, being there for the baby showers, but also being there to be caregivers to our families is very, very important. Equal pay is, of course, very, very high on our list as well. As a Latina, we make 54 cents to the dollar for every dollar that a white man makes. That's still lower than African American women and white females as well. And so we need to make sure that we are giving the correct opportunities to Latinos as well, depending on the pay scale. Healthcare is really pivotal as well. There's this notion that there's the healthy migrant complex. When Latinos come to the United States, they're very healthy. But then we get a lot of bad habits. whether that's eating, whether that's not exercising regularly. And so we need to make sure that there's healthcare available for these folks, because at the end of their lives, when they come into retirement, that really is going to be a really big part of what their retirement savings will go into their healthcare. And then as well, making sure that there's retirement benefits and access is key. But not only that, making sure to better advertise and explain benefit packages to young employees and provide one-on-one benefits counseling and enrollment assistance. Again, for a lot of these folks, it's their first time that they're receiving healthcare. For me, I remember the first time that I went to the dentist, I think I was 22 years old. For the first time that I ever called my first primary care doctor, I was 24 years old. So for a lot of these folks, there's that huge gap that they've never seen. They've never had healthcare. They've never had access to retirement. And so if those things are available in your companies, make sure that there is that one person, that one advocate for the Latinos there, because those folks don't necessarily know how to navigate those spaces. And lastly, I want to conclude with saying that using both of my titles, I continue to work to bridge the gap in the following ways for Latinos. Within next year, we'll be working on 20 cafecito town halls across the country, not only educating young Latinos, but also their parents on what retirement looks like, actually having the conversation of retirement, but then also helping older Latinos sign up for Social Security benefits, because there is still that huge gap of Latinos that don't sign up for their benefits, even though they're available to them. And then for young Latinos, we're hosting collegiate conferences in 8 regions across the country. We want to make sure that we give these folks access to salary negotiation, access to budgeting, access to really figuring out how to take the most advantage of their benefits packages once they do get offers in different companies. We want to make sure that we have a great workforce, because we know that Latinos have a very, very high work ethic that could really be the changing leaders of the United States today. Thank you very much, and I'm really looking forward to your questions. The first one is, what kind of cultural norms, such as large extended families, should employers consider when designing benefits programs for increasing foreign-born workforce? One of the cultural norms really is having large extended families. Knowing that Latinos really embrace their family is really key. Knowing and really keeping a Latino employed in the United States is all about having that conversation and that relationship with them as well. Them knowing that you accept their culture and accept their different notions is really, really important. As far as another cultural norm, again, is knowing that you are also a part of their family when you go to work with them. The second question is, what is one of the most important work/quality of life benefit young people want that you think is not mainstream? Honestly, I think it is understanding the fact that young people are very volunteer work oriented. I think they really want to feel good about the work that they're doing, and they want to know that their employers are also thinking and think that it's important, the values that they have outside of the workplace. So for me, finding an employer that understands my immigrant status and understands that that's something that I would always advocate for is very, very important. And that'll obviously change from, whether that's a Latino or whether that's an African American, but knowing their struggles and understanding that is really, really important. Employers had advocated for a shift to more electronic communications with respect to benefit notices. What would be the implications of that shift for non-native English speakers? In general, when there are, whether that's an employee handbook or anything else that's being delivered to non-English speaking communities, is not only making sure that there's translated correctly, but it's also translated in layman's terms. A lot of retirement benefits packages you look at and you're just like reading Chinese. It's really, really hard to understand. And so if there's a way to make communication in layman's terms, I think it would really be beneficial, not only for non-English speaking people, but also for English speaking people as well. How do healthcare costs factor into workers' efforts to achieve a secure retirement? I want to say that this is a very difficult question. Healthcare costs are right now, depending on how the ACA and the new tax plan and how those benefits to lower income communities. Again, for the first time, some of these people are seeing that they can go to the doctor, that they can have access to these things. And so if that is taken away from them, it's going to be huge because there's not going to be a way for them to prevent any healthcare risks that might be in their families. For a lot of Latinos, diabetes is very, very high, and so not being able to prevent that would be huge. And again, making sure that they have access to healthcare from the beginning, I think it would make it a less of a problem at the end of their lifetime when they're preparing to also undertake the cost of retiring, but also healthcare as well. And the last one is, conventional wisdom suggests that a smart immigration policy will help mitigate anticipated US labor shortages. Would you expect Latinos to be the beneficiaries of such a policy? Of course. I think that if we have comprehensive immigration reform, or if we have any kind of immigration reform, whether that's for Dreamers, DACA recipients, it would be completely beneficial, not only for the economy, because a lot of these folks are entrepreneurs, a lot of these folks do work in the nonprofit space, but again, a lot of these folks are also providing or putting in money into Social Security. If we are able to pass immigration reform, we will not have to worry about Social Security not being there for us. And we can make sure that we have a great way for Americans as a whole to benefit from such a policy. All right, and I think that's it. Thank you so much.